think about a time where you grew the most. Was it a time where you didn't fail? No, it was probably a time where you failed a decent percentage of the time, right? Was it a time where you understood, where you could execute every single plan that you came up with? No, it was a time where you were probably forced to improvise a little bit.
That's Daniel Coyle. He's an award-winning author of multiple New York Times bestsellers that explore how people and groups grow, perform, and thrive. He combines immersive field reporting with behavioral science to create practical frameworks for building skill, culture, and meaningful connection. His new book, Flourish, The Art of Building Meaning, Joy, and Fulfillment, reveals what it takes to cultivate a life and a work experience that's full of joy and vitality. So you'll learn 1, why shared improvement beats self-improvement. 2, the 3-minute visualization that liberates tremendous clarity. And 3, why vulnerability comes before trust, not after. And if you want a quick summary write-up of the actionable takeaways that Daniel shares, I recommend you sign up for the free Gold Nugget email newsletter found at awesomeatyourjob.com. I'm Pete Mockaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Daniel. Daniel, welcome back.
Hey, it's good to be back, Pete. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm excited to talk about flourishing. You've done some great work here with your book and a lot of research. Could you kick us off by sharing what's perhaps one of the most surprising and fascinating discoveries you've made about us humans and workers and flourishing?
2 of them. One is that it's still happening. It feels like we're living in this dystopia sometimes, but man, there's a lot of good stories of human flourishing. And by flourishing, we should kind of define it, I guess, which is joyful, meaningful growth. Joyful, meaningful growth, like the highlights of our lives, the thing we all want for ourselves and our kids and our work and our colleagues. And the biggest surprise of it, when I went into this sort of researching, finding people who were flourishing, I had the assumption that I had learned, which was that kind of you flourish alone. Like it's up to you, right? We're in this individualistic culture. It's like my deal. And what I found over and over again was that's just not how it works. There are no hermits in caves in Switzerland who are like kicking ass, flourishing. We require other people to bring out the best version of ourselves. We are pre-wired for this. You can try all you want and grind all you want and try to be the solo mountain climber, but in the end, flourishing is a human ecosystem and it's interdependent. And if we think back on the times in our lives where we've grown the most, I'll bet you dollars to donuts, as they say, that you weren't by yourself. You were surrounded by people. When we look at stories of great success, the narratives we receive are often stories of the solo hero. But scratch that just a little bit. Just look half an inch beneath, and you will find ecosystems of support. And that's what those places are building. They're building community. It's the power of community. And where that gets really interesting is applying it to our workplace, because a lot of times our workplace are built under that similar assumption that you're on your own, man. You get promoted by yourself, you get reviewed by yourself. But the places that I visited were really good at creating that kind of connective energy and that group brain that makes 1 + 1 = 10.
You know, I love that so much. And it's funny that I think I'm coming around to realizing something that has been on my mind for 28-ish years. And it's this. Back in high school, I participated in marching band. I was an alto sax, if you're curious. And and I was amazed at marching band camp. So here in the summer for about 2 weeks, like 8 a.m. to 3 p.m.-ish, we just played music and tried to move to different spots on the football field over and over and over again. Yeah, and so we're talking about 7 hours, day after day after day, to put together a little marching band show. And so I always thought, this is fun. I was there. I liked meeting people. It was a thing to do. My brother did it. And I just had a good time, just hanging out with people and playing some music, doing a show. But I always thought during marching band camp and many times afterwards, boy, if I could just buckle down by myself and put that kind of energy and attention and time into an endeavor, the way we do in marching band camp, to do a little music show on a football field, what kind of incredible things would I be able to achieve? What kind of flourishing and growth could I encounter? And well, you know what, Daniel, may not surprise you. You've done the research. 28 years later, I still can't do that by myself.
Yeah, right. It's true. That's how we're wired. It goes deep. Let's just move the camera back a few 100,000 years, right? Who's going to survive? The group that can cooperate and do their marching band, and call it killing a mammoth or whatever, or the lonely, strong, courageous lone wolf guy? I mean, there's no question. So when we play a game, let's say we're trying to do something and we're both wired up to some machine that measures our overall happiness and energy and our brainwaves, our shared success lights us up way more than our individual success. If you want to tap in, if you see your life as a journey where you need a lot of energy and a lot of ideas, don't do it alone. You really finding these ways to connect, finding these communities and the power of community. That's a word that I always thought was such a boring word. Like you'd see community meeting on a sign and it would kind of be like, oh, snooze, But what I've realized in looking at these flourishing places is that they don't see community as a noun. They see it as a verb, as a set of actions. If you're going to form a community, it's not just, oh yeah, we're in the same area at the same time. Super intentional about creating these little pauses where people come together in the workplace. Super intentional about creating spaces where people can explore questions. Simple questions like, how should we march across this football field? Like, how should we play this song? The workplace version of that. And they're not operating as lone wolves. They're creating spaces where they can come together and explore that mystery. And all their brains are lighting up and they're growing and changing. And they're creating these little, like little gardens, right? And what happened with you, and I think everybody has their own marching band camp experience back there where you come out of it and you say, I'm kind of different now. I grew and I helped other people grow. And that's like the most core human energy. And what's interesting is that we've kind of hollowed it out of the workplace. All the fun and energy that is possible for humans when they come together to do projects, our workplace has been really good about eliminating that in some ways. There are a lot of work that feels very hollow. I've heard it called the emptiness epidemic, where it's like, oh man, I know exactly what I have to do. I have all the information. I have exactly my markers, my KPOs. I've got everything that I need, but I just don't have any meaning. And I don't feel like that energy and I don't feel that connection. And so these places are kind of the antidote to the emptiness epidemic that I think a lot of us are feeling around the workplace right now.
Well, there's so many places to go there. So if you find yourself in that spot, you're exactly as you described. You've got all the marching orders, the clear KPIs for evaluation, and it's just kind of lifeless. What's to be done?
Yeah. Well, what's to be done? What's to be done? It'd be great if I could be like, here's a silver bullet that will solve all the problems. That doesn't exist. Two things I would say, though. First of all, reflect on where you are getting a sense of aliveness. There's a little litmus test that you can give in terms of flourishing, which is, who do I feel most alive with? Is there anybody in this? Who do I feel most alive with? And the second is, what are you growing together? What are you making together? What are you growing? So ask that. Find locations in your life. Find the spaces, the conversations, the relationships where you feel that energy and that sense. That's the first thing. And then start experimenting a little bit. Your culture, your community is the 15 feet around you all the time. And these little moments, I call them yellow doors, little moments that maybe, green doors are for sure we go through them, red doors we don't. Yellow doors are kind of where you're not sure whether you should go through it or not. And what I saw in these places is that they had the habit of reaching out. And if we talk about relationships like they're a machine, like I'm going to go build relationships grow. They grow in tiny moments of warmth, eye contact, and they grow in questions, just asking questions. What's energizing you about this podcast right now, Pete? What are you responding to? Like questions that are in the moment where it actually makes people come alive and respond. And all of a sudden you're on a different depth with them. You're on a different level. And the third thing I would say is get good at pausing. Like our workplace life these days resembles a race, right? An information race and a project race. And the places that I visited and the people that I visited were exceptionally good at stopping and zooming out a little bit. And when they zoom out, they're asking questions like, what does this mean? Where is this headed? Who might help me here? What is this going to look like? And I really began to see pausing as like the ultimate ninja skill. Anybody can work harder and faster. And in the age of obviously AI, we've got all the answers are right here. We can just go and sprint. Every day is a sprint. But the places that I visited had this ability to say, like, before a team would go out on a project, they wouldn't reflect, they would preflect, do a preflection. What's the ideal outcome? What's the end state we're going for? Let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about what's energizing us about this project. What are you most curious to learn? Where are you curious? And then let's talk about, like, what if everything goes sideways? What does that look like? Like, how will we know we're screwing up? And then afterwards, they would do an AAR, similarly, a pause. Feels like a waste of time. The project's already done, right? But the pause afterwards where you say, okay, what went right? We all share. What went wrong? We all share. And what are we going to do differently next time? It takes like 5 minutes. Navy SEALs do it. A lot of high-performing organizations do it. Do a preflection and then an AAR. And they're just these moments that inject meaning and relationships to what could be just cold, hard KPIs projects. And if you don't get good at investing, at creating those moments, which just take a short amount of time to put some like life and oxygen and curiosity and realness and authenticity into them, and that happens in a pause. Everything I just did was this series of questions, right? What are you curious about? What do you want to learn? What could go wrong? I think we're so good in our culture as worshiping at the altar of the answer. Like, oh, that guy's got all the answers. She's got all the answers. That's great. They're so good. I'm sorry, but the world is always changing. The answers are going to be different tomorrow than they are today. So having an answer is less valuable than it ever has been in the history of the world. You can get answers in a lot of places. Having great questions, however, is becoming more and more and more valuable. And those questions don't just exist as informational questions. They exist as spaces for people to come together and explore those questions together to say, what's really going on, so that they can actually build shared mental models and build shared relationships. Those relationships are the energy source that powers you in your career. You could take all the studies of long-term adult development and they'd add up to one thing: relationships, relationships, relationships. That's all that makes us happy. That's all that makes us fulfilled. And so if we approach everything as transaction, we end up kind of hollowed out.
Yeah, totally. It's like, well, yes, that was the top thing. I remember we had Robert Waldinger on that very long-term study of Harvard graduates. And that was the thing. It was like, it's all about love and relationships. Also, watch out for alcoholism.
Yeah. Don't drink too much and don't worry about much else. Like, it's more powerful than genetics, right?
Totally. Okay. So it's a lovely piece in terms of it doesn't take a ton of time to inject meaning and relationship, human bits into efforts. And I'm thinking about that ritual of always checking in how it went. And I remember I was stunned by, we had a mega church pastor, it might have been Clay Scroggins, someone on the show, we'll put in the show notes, who said that was a thing that they did after every Sunday worship day, like on Monday. That was just that, hey, how'd that go? I remember I was so struck by that because it's so beautiful in that you can really create some cool compounding results in terms of, oh man, I'm thinking about this James Clear Atomic Habits type stuff. It's like, oh shucks, if we get 2% better at putting this thing together, then each time, then my goodness, I guess that's how churches can become mega. It's like, this is a pretty amazing experience.
Everything becomes mega, isn't it? It's like everything's a spiral, Pete. Like, it's a natural shape. It's not a machine, but all natural learning, like your learning, my learning, your listeners' learnings. If you really think about it, they're doing just what that pastor did, which was like, you have an experience and then you got to go back and get a little feedback about it. And that elevates you a little bit. And then you do another one and then you get a little feedback and that elevates you a little bit. And that spiral upward is what we're all seeking. And the problem is that we mistake it for a ladder. We mistake it for like a straight line thing, and it's never straight because there's going to be some wrong turns. There's going to be some failures. And one of the most useful concepts, there's been a concept that I learned doing this book that just blew me away. And I keep thinking about it all the time as a parent, as kind of an entrepreneur, as a writer. And that's the distinction between complicated and complex. Is that a familiar distinction to you? Like, I always thought they was the same. I thought they were like similar, like it's complicated, it's complex, same thing. It turns out that's deeply wrong. Like, complicated things come together the same way every single time. Like, it's building a Ferrari, right? If I give you all the parts of a Ferrari and I give you the instructions and you put them together in that way, you will get a Ferrari every time. Complex things change. complex things, when you interact with them, they move and they respond. And so the mental model is like, is this more like building a machine or is it more like raising a teen? There's no instruction book. Everything I do changes the dynamic. And so our lives, our careers, our learning is way more complex than it is complicated. And so adapting it, knowing that our path is going to be curving, knowing that we're going to fail, knowing that failure is going to teach us something, knowing that the only way you can figure things out is to kind of act your way into them, to actions and experiments are incredibly powerful for that reason. That's why science is so strong. It's actually trying to figure out what's there, probing and then learning and then probing again and learning and probing again. And when we take that kind of stance toward the learning in our career development, it puts you in the front seat more. Like it's a more active thing and you start to see failure not as a verdict, but as a learning process where it's like, oh, that conversation went off the rails. But guess what? I'm never going to make that mistake again. That was powerful. And changing that stance can be, I've just seen that over and over again in my career of hanging around with high-performing organizations. That learning bit, we kind of always tip our hat to it. It's good to be a learner, but man, this world changes fast. It's not just like morally good to be the learner. It is by far the most powerful stance you can take toward reality.
And I also love that notion that if teams are regularly having these exchanges with one another, that goes miles in terms of, well, I guess growing, not building, growing the relationships. Well, so as I think about these relationships growing and getting stronger and having these kinds of exchanges, I think that's also just going to do loads for psychological safety. Amy Edmondson was on the show talking about that, and we've had others who put it very simply. People see stuff that's dumb all the time, but they're probably not going to mention it unless you've got some sort of relationship or belief that that's going to go somewhere.
That's so deep, isn't it? And that word safety is a tricky one a little bit because it implies that we're going to make everyone feel very secure. But in fact, it's about courage. Like the courage to say, oh, I noticed that was off and we can fix it. And so what I've seen leaders do over and over again, because we're naturally like hierarchical, right? So for all the young leaders out there, the most important words you can say are like, hey, I screwed that up before. Or,
yeah,
hey, what do you think? If you could change one thing, to actually go kind of overboard in taking off your crown of power and inviting people into, again, let's go back into question space where they can explore it together. That's where relationships are built, in that exploration, when we're stepping into that uncertainty. And the deeper level of that is really all about how vulnerability works. Like, I think our story in our head about trust and vulnerability, we've got it deeply wrong. Like, we normally think, okay, Pete, I've got to trust you before I can be vulnerable. So I'm kind of looking to see if you can earn that, right? We've got it backwards. Moments of vulnerability are what create trust. It's called a vulnerability loop. When you're vulnerable, that gives me permission to be vulnerable, and now we're closer. And think about your best friends in the world. Are they people that that you earned the trust of? Or are they people that you were like thrown into struggle with and people that you were very vulnerable with? Those are our best friends, because that's how vulnerability works. It doesn't come after trust. It comes before.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Well, could you share perhaps a story with us of folks who were not so much flourishing, and then they incorporated some of your pro moves here and saw a real increase in that flourishing?
Pro moves. I like that. So there's one story, I guess this might resonate. I've been consulting with the Cleveland Guardians baseball team for the last 13 years. They had just started a large organizational effort to build the organization around the general, and basically about context here. They're one of the poorest teams in baseball. In baseball, there's no salary cap. So the Yankees can spend 4 times as much money on their players every year. So the Guardians can't buy players. They have to make players, grow players. And like every baseball team, they've got a sort of a school system of, there's minor league teams, single A, double A, triple A. And it's like a giant baseball school. And so we have to figure out, how can the Guardians compete in such an unfair game? And so we created a generative question, which was, how do we help every player improve? And we oriented all the departments around it. And we quickly realized, man, if players are going to improve, we need to really improve our coaches. Our coaches need to be learning fast. And so our first move we said, well, let's bring in expert coaches. We'll tell them how to coach. We brought in Michael Phelps as coach. We brought in NFL coaches, Navy SEAL guys. And it felt good. It felt like it was a really smart thing to do. But then as we watched it, the coaches did what everybody does, which is they kind of resist it. Nobody likes being coerced from the top down. Nobody likes that. Go tell your kid to clean their room and see how fast they clean their room. It doesn't work. So we flipped it. We flipped it around. We created a question space. We put the coaches in small groups and said, okay, guys, who is the best coach you ever saw? And what did they do? That was it. All of a sudden at these tables, the conversation starts to bubble. And like champagne, all of a sudden they're throwing out stories and ideas and concepts. And we went from like top down saying, do this expert stuff to, you guys, we're going to value you. You're really smart. Let's bring those out. We turned that into our model of excellent coaching, which we still use to this day. And there were a million other little programs like that, whereby sort of flipping the polarity from here are the experts, here's best practices, follow these instructions, from coercion to, whoom, let's explore this together. What energizes you right now? And aligning that with what the academic studies of what works with coaching. And over the last 13 years, we've made the playoff 8 times. We've won as many games as the Yankees and spent $1.3 billion less. We're adding up to more. We're growing. We're getting a little better at growing players. It's not easy, and we haven't won the World Series yet, but it has been alive. It's been energized. It's been challenging, but it's been really joyful. And so that's the piece where I see it happening. And when I see that happening at the highest level of sport, where everything is quantified and where things are extremely difficult, it gives me some hope that it can happen in the places that are maybe away from the bright spotlight.
That's really cool. And I love the notion of we flip it and then you ask the question. So can you share with us, you've given us a couple fabulous questions. Can you give us a few more of your faves that unlock some cool flourishing action?
Yeah. No, I really like flight checks. It's a concept out of IDEO. Flight checks is you do with your team, you do and a lot of these are all social, right? You're not doing it. You can do it by yourself if you want to, but it's always better to do it with other people. Pre-flight, we're about to do a project. Let's do a pre-flight, let's do a mid-flight, and let's do a post-flight. And the questions are always really basic. It's like, what's been the biggest positive? What's been the biggest negative? What are you still energized by where we started out? What did you learn? These basic sort of check-ins. There's one question that I really like before a team gets together, because, a lot of times you're coming together, you don't know each other. And there's an exercise called the 4 H's that's really powerful. And it's a kind of a relationship builder, or relationship grower, rather. Let's use our language correctly here, Pete. 4 H's, you get to a small group and everybody shares their history, just a little bit about their history, where you're from, where's your family from, their heartbreak, what's something that broke your heart, their hero, and their hope for the coming year. Super simple. Take a couple minutes, you go around the horn. But what's happening is you're turning off your narrow attention system and you're opening up your relational attention system. You're creating connective energy in that moment. So that's one that I really like. It's really basic. And there's one more that is more for individuals. It was taught to me by a Columbia University psychologist, Lisa Miller. It's called the council exercise. And I'll just describe it, or we could actually do it if you want. Do you want me to walk through it?
Let's walk through it.
All right, let's walk through it. Close your eyes, picture a wooden table, just a simple wooden table. And around that table, picture people, living or deceased, who truly have your best interest in mind, who are truly deeply on your side. And let them come and take a seat. And now picture yourself walking in and taking a seat. And now ask them if they love you and listen to their response. And now ask them, what is it that is important for you to know right now about where you are headed? What is it that is important for you to know right now about where you are headed? And listen to their answer. And now you can open your eyes. And that's it. It's a little grounding exercise. How did it go for you?
Daniel, I bet people cry when you do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm tearing up a little here. It's and it's so funny. It's like that's always inside of us. And yet, unless you pause and really go there. Because in some ways, it's like we like to rush. We like to get their answers. Like, do I really have to visualize the table? And now I got to visualize people. And now I got to visualize me walking in the room as opposed to just, what's the answer? And yet it makes all the difference in terms of it hitting home.
It hits home, right? I love how you said that. Those people are always with you. And yet we don't sort of stop and turn and listen to them. And so a lot of this stuff is about getting in deeper touch with what we really value, what's really beautiful in our lives, what's really true in our lives, and creating space in our work, in our home life where we can stop and do that. And our ancestors stopped a lot more than we did, right? Old time life was filled with moments like that, rituals where you'd think about the people who came before and think about what they meant and look at treasured objects and symbols. And our life has been like kind of ruthlessly stripped of a lot of those pauses. And so it's up to us to smuggle them back into our life, to take a second and feel that powerful stuff that's, like you say, it's waiting for you. It's not something you had to build. We all have got, that's called your counsel. We've all got a counsel. They're with us all the time. And listening to them at those moments it's not just comfort. For me, the powerful part of it is the clarity that you get from that. You get a new sense of what matters and what doesn't matter. And that's actually incredibly stabilizing in this world where it feels like we're always chasing something, chasing shiny objects. It is incredibly stabilizing to have a moment where you can stop and activate what you're born to do, let go of control and connect to what's really there. It's just like the most powerful skill. And it's half an inch beneath the surface waiting to come out.
And what I love so much about this is I've had guests and they say things like, form a personal advisory board. It's like, okay, that's good advice. Yeah, sure. Good thinking. And then we've had Tara Moore on the show, did some great thoughts about thinking about sort of like an inner mentor, a wiser, maybe older version of you who cares about you. When you do a visualization, you speak with them. And that's cool and powerful as well. What I like here is you kind of merge those in a groovy way. And for me, just to share, it was sort of a notion of having some worries, concerns, anxieties associated about the future state of some things. And then to feel the reassurance from these people that my capabilities are vast. And one way or another, we're going to figure this thing out. And there's really no need to get all worried about all this stuff.
Yeah, I know. It's a good feeling, right? It's just stabilizing. I just love that. It's grounding, right? It's grounding.
Right.
So you got that for a big one. And then you've got all kinds of other little ones. Like there's a little deli in Michigan that has grown into a $90 million community of businesses that does a nice job of teaching this stuff. And he talks about, Ari Weinswag, who's the CEO, talks about SBA, which is stop, breathe, appreciate. Like to have a minute where you stop, breathe, and appreciate. SBA. It's another good one, but it's just like, I think most of us could use 3 or 4 of these things in our holster. Some to do in a team context, some to do in an individual context, some to do in kind of a more, I'm going to retreat and think about things context. But yeah, they're just so, if we, the world wants to lift us off the ground. And so we have to have our own tools for grounding ourselves.
Okay. Well, you also have a turn of phrase, nurturing beautiful messes. What does that consist of and how and why should we do that?
Yeah, when I visited these places, I thought when I'd visit them that they'd be tidy. I thought that these flourishing places would like have all the answers. And as we've said, what they had was a lot of questions. And then what they would do is explore those questions in a messy way. Like to go back to the guardians and the coaches gathered around trying to come up with what the best coaches did. That was not a nice, neat process. There was a ton of slack in it. There was a ton of little rabbit holes that people chased down because that's actually how growth works. Think about a time where you grew the most. Was it a time where you didn't fail? Like, no, it was probably a time where you failed a decent percentage of the time. Was it a time where you understood, where you could execute every single plan that you came up with? No, it was a time where you were probably forced to improvise a little bit. And so with these flourishing places and these flourishing people in this flourishing community, what there was this kind of self-organizing around obstacles that was invariably messy. Because if it's not messy, you're not doing it right. If it's not messy, you're not giving people the freedom to self-organize and take a role. We had a moment over Thanksgiving where my wife and I were putting on a dinner for your family and maybe 25 people. And The turkey was about to come out of the oven and nothing was ready. The table wasn't set, And I kind of looked around, sort of did the father thing, like kind of skeptical, like, is this going to come together? And then all of the kids and all their friends, like, it was like one of those Walt Disney fast motion things. Everything's perfect. Candles are lit in a tiny amount of time. Way more than if somebody had said, you do this and you do that and you do this. It was a little messy, and that's what gave it the energy. Mess isn't actually mess. Mess is agency.
Yeah.
And when you give people agency in a space, you end up with a much better result than if you kill agency.
Yeah. That makes a lot of good sense. Daniel, as people think about this flourishing stuff and we're getting excited, and like, yes, that's cool. I want that more. Yes, please. What would you say are your top do's and don'ts for professionals who maybe don't have, leadership managerial authority, but want some more flourishing and they want to get it going and want to avoid any missteps?
Yeah. The do would be get a 3x5 card and make a mark on it for every day and start paying attention to where you feel most alive and where you feel you're contributing to stuff, to something that's kind of alive and growing. Just notice that. That's all. That's the first step. If anybody gives you like a set of instructions on how to flourish, then that means it's not actually a good set of instructions because it is up to you. It is not something.
Yeah.
But that's a guidepost. Look at what's already happening in your life. Where are you feeling that energy? And as far as a don't goes, I think the biggest don't would be to do it. Don't do it alone. Share your story with other people and share your journey with other people and share your struggles with other people. That is the thing that will create the energy that will allow you to get through. We live in a world of self-improvement, but shared improvement is way more powerful.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that. And I'm thinking about, I've had times with accountability groups, men's groups, my podcast mastermind group, and it's been transformational. And what's really cool is you don't necessarily have to have these humans in your own workplace. Ideally, you could. You have some great fun team experiences, and hopefully you can move in those directions if that's not currently happening. But even if nobody wants to play ball, you can tap into some of this goodness with your other communities and relationships around you.
Exactly. It's a whole ecosystem. So explore it.
Big thanks to Daniel for sharing his wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. One sponsor to check out is Monarch. I don't enjoy thinking about or fiddling with money, so I love resources that make this quicker and easier. Set yourself up for financial success this year. Monarch is a gorgeous personal finance tool that makes your money life easier. It brings your whole money picture from budgets to accounts and transactions and investments into one super handy dashboard on your phone or laptop. I was such a fan of the old Mint.com and was super bummed when it disappeared. But the good news is that Monarch was founded by a team that includes the original product manager of Mint, and I dare say it's even better. I like the graphical summaries that help me drill down into things quickly and easily and helps me get to the bottom of anything that just seems off or weird or helps me zero in on great opportunities for savings faster. In fact, Monarch helped the average user save over $200 per month after joining. So set yourself up for financial success in 2026 with Monarch, the all-in-one tool that makes proactive money management simple all year long. Use code AWESOME at monarch.com for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code AWESOME. One sponsor to check out is Vanguard. As we step into a new year, it's the perfect time for all the advisors listening to think about how to set up your clients for success. One way to do that is to level up your fixed income strategy. But bonds are tricky. The market is huge, rates shift, and risks hide in plain sight. That's why having a partner with scale and expertise matters. Vanguard brings both. Vanguard bonds provide top-grade products across the board. Their lineup includes over 80 bond funds actively managed by a 200-person global squad of sector specialists, analysts, and traders. Vanguard's been in the game for a long time at a scale that gives them a serious edge. They're able to invest across many sectors, maturities, and geographies, spotting opportunities that others might miss. Vanguard takes a steady approach, focusing on reliability and consistency. So if you're looking to give your clients consistent results year in and year out, go see the record for yourself at vanguard.com/audio. That's vanguard.com/audio. All investing is subject to risk. Vanguard Marketing Corporation, distributor. One sponsor to check out is Shopify. When you're starting something new, what ifs abound. What if I fail? What if nobody cares? What if nobody buys my stuff? Shopify can help make things easy. Shopify is the commerce platform behind millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S., from household names like Magic Spoon and Allbirds to brands just getting started. Shopify facilitates everything from inventory to payments to analytics and more. No need to use a dozen different software tools. Everything's all in one place, making your life easier and your operations smoother. And what if you get stuck? Well, Shopify is always around to share advice with their award-winning 24/7 customer support. You can get started with your own design studio with hundreds of ready-to-use templates. Shopify helps you build a beautiful online store that matches your brand style. It's time to turn those what-ifs into ka-ching with Shopify today. Sign up for your $1 per month trial today at shopify.com/awesome. Go to shopify.com/awesome. That's shopify.com/awesome. Ka-ching. Now, could you share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
I always go back to, I think it was William Faulkner who said, only connect. Only connect. I love the clarity of that. And that has always made, at the end of the day, what's it about? It's about that.
And could you share a favorite study or experiment or bit of research?
I keep getting taken with this. It was a priming one. A lot of the priming experiments have been a little bit debunked, but the difference between when you're approaching a task, the difference between saying, I'm nervous and I'm excited. I feel that in my body. When I say I'm nervous, it just gets worse. And when I say I'm excited, it's a reframing of that. And some of that reframing stuff I find to be personally super applicable.
And a favorite book?
The Right Stuff. It's the book that made me want to be a writer. There's a feeling when you're reading some books where it just feels like you can feel the top of your head coming off. And I don't know if you ever felt that with a book or a song or anything, but it's like that knocked me out. Tom Wolfe.
All right. And a favorite tool?
I like a great pencil, a great mechanical pencil.
Oh, I have the same one.
Come on, dude.
I got multiples.
Check it out. That's awesome.
This is a Graph Gear by Pentel for listeners.
Yeah, tell us sponsors. But it's great, right? Like I really get a lot of joy out of that. And it's like that stuff matters. It's a little sacred.
And a favorite habit?
I think I got to say, like trying to get it, I don't do it every day, but when I do have a workout, like a hard workout, that is like, makes me feel so much better.
All right. And is there a key nugget you share that really seems to connect and resonate with folks? You hear it quoted back to you often?
Yeah. Culture isn't something that you say or something you are. It's something that you do. It's a set of relationships moving toward a goal.
All right. And if folks want to learn more or get in touch, where would you point them?
DanielCoyle.com.
All right. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Yeah, I would say that the call to action would be to make one random reach out to somebody who you haven't connected with in a long time for no reason. Just reach out and an old friend or something like that and see what happens. That would be the challenge. It's like renewing those acquaintances ends up just being highlight of a day.
And I want to dig into that a little bit because I think that folks naturally can feel some emotional resistance. Like, oh, that's kind of weird. We haven't talked in like 3 years. They're going to think I'm trying to rope them into a multi-level marketing scam. How do I say it? What do you say to folks who are having a little bit of emotional resistance to this thing?
Get out, try it. Everything good is on the other side of fear, period. So that you're feeling fear is absolutely appropriate, right? But I would also turn them to the work of Nick Epley at the University of Chicago, who has people do this at scale. And you can see the numbers where it's like the people who are asked to talk to other people on the train are really pessimistic about it. They think, oh, this is going to suck. Guess what? Highlight of their day. People who are asked to just stay by yourself on the train, just prepare for your work, focus on yourself. They end up enjoying it a lot less than they thought they would. So there's this flip. We think we're not going to enjoy these interactions, but we are built. You are pre-wired to enjoy and appreciate and be energized by them. We can't help it.
I love it. Daniel, thank you. So much good stuff.
Super fun, Pete. Thanks for having me.
I love so much what Daniel had to say about how you can do those small questions, prompts, explorations, reflections to drive a whole lot more meaning and cohesive goodness and joy and vitality in the experience of work. And what I'm loving the most, though, is that counsel exercise. Boy, a reliable, quick, and powerful tool to use to get out of like an anxious, a worried, a freaking out kind of a place and get right into a very empowered, uplifting zone to make good stuff happen. Lovely insights from Daniel. If you want to check out the show notes or the transcript or the links to items that we've referenced, please drop on by awesomeatyourjob.com/EP1134. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.